Namo Krishna 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 Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namo Namaste Saraswati Devi Bhagavani Pachayami Nirvishesha Srimavadi Pachayami Prasatani Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Krishna. This evening I would like to speak on the topic, the power of spiritual identity. And I will start with reading a verse from the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. Let's see if I find the verse. Verse 34.
Introduction, short introduction.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, we are very fortunate and happy to welcome His Holiness Bhakti Prabhu Sai Maharaj. साईं महाराज जी के बारे में मैं कुछ बताऊंगा आप लोगों को, आप लोग सुन सकते हैं। महाराज जी का जन्म बेल्जियम में हुआ 1960 में he met devotees in Ghent in summer of 1992. 1992 में भक्तों से मिले और 92 से 96 तक he was active in Namhatta preaching and joined Radhadesh temple. Radhadesh temple is Belgium. So he joined there in 96. In 94, Maharaj met His Holiness Bhakti Chaur Swami Maharaj and he became his initiated disciple in 94. Sorry, 94 he met. In 98, 12th March he got his initiation, first initiation and second initiation on 25th August 1999. On 31st May 2015, Maharaj accepted sannyas order from His Holiness Bhakti Chaur Swami Maharaj only. And Maharaj is basically preaching in this European nations and he has taken many responsibility on the GBC level and he organized first European leader meetings and went on several missions for European RGB रीजनल GBC. जैसे हमारा बड़ा GBC है बड़ा पूरा स्कॉन का, वैसे रीजनल लेवल पे RGBC होते हैं. He organized the first European leaders meeting and then he was requested to become the secretary of global GBC body. First he was the secretary of regional GBC body and then he became the secretary for global GBC executive committee and he fulfilled that role till 2009 September and 2011 to 2016 he served as secretary for GBC Sannyas Ministry. जैसे हमारे गवर्नमेंट है ना उसमें बहुत सारी मिनिस्ट्रियाँ होती है, जैसे हमारे स्कॉन में बहुत सारी मिनिस्ट्री है, एजुकेशन मिनिस्ट्री, so one ministry sannyas ministry where we check proper candidate is proper to award sannyas or not. So Maharaj is secretary for that and he organized first GBC mid-year meeting held at Prabhupada Days in Italy, October 6 to 9 2006. Like that he has served in various capacities and Maharaj is the member for Sastrik committee as well for guiding from the Sastras. He travels and teaches Srimad Bhagavatam and other Bhakti scriptures in ISKCON centers and institutions around Europe since early 2000, especially in UK, Ireland, Germany, Ukraine, Bulgaria, etc. And he studied Bhakti Vaibhav 2001 to 2005 and then Bhakti Vedanta 2006 to 2011. This is the highest degree like Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti Sastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, then Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti Sarvabhaum is also there at VIHE Vrindavan. And he earned a PhD in study of religion at University of Wales in 2016 and published a number of academic articles. He currently serves as a member for Sannyas Ministry and as a member of ISKCON Board for Examination. ISKCON Board for Examination, Education Board है हमारे ISKCON का. Since early 2018, he is serving as Temple President for ISKCON Belfast. So we welcome Maharaj. We are very fortunate to have Maharaj Association. Maharaj is very senior devotee in ISKCON and traveling all over world. You can ask any question related to like Shastric understanding. Maharaj has can explain very nicely. And Maharaj will be here till tomorrow evening at least. And then he has program at center, BHL center. So welcome Maharaj by loudly chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So Maharaj will speak. If you need translation, then do you need translation or that will work? किस को translation की जरूरत नहीं है? Okay, maximum. बाकी लोग भी समझ जाएंगे उनको देख के. Hare Krishna.
So
No translation.
No translation. Okay. Good. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutta Vishwamate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskachayata Satarani. So I choose to speak on the power of spiritual identity. To understand the nature of our spiritual identity requires intelligence, very high intelligence. Most people cannot understand it. But Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita about this intelligence, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. He gives this intelligence to one Yuktanam who worship him with Priti Purvakam, with a little laugh. Love for Krishna is a higher intelligence. Without that intelligence, that's the intelligence of the soul, the original intelligence of the soul, the pure intelligence. It's not by scholarly endeavor that one can understand anything of Krishna consciousness. When I did my PhD at the University of Wales, there were so many scholars. They knew Bhagavad Gita, they could quote Bhagavad Gita, but they were not able to understand the difference between the body and the soul. So what's the use of their study? But this Buddhi Yoga is given by Krishna from within the heart when one surrenders to Krishna. That's the condition. Without that, Krishna does not give you this higher intelligence. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who studies this dialogue between me and Arjuna, he worships me with his intelligence. And that's what we are going to attempt this evening. I will start with reading a verse from the 13th chapter and of the Bhagavad Gita. The 13th chapter, Krishna explains 6 subject matters. Kshetra, kshetrajya, jnanam, jnanam, prakriti, purush. 6 subject matters. But it speaks about the body, the knowers of the body. It speaks about nature and the enjoyer, and it speaks about knowledge and about knowledge of the super soul. But in verse 34, he speaks about consciousness. So, before we read from Bhagavad Gita, we glorify the speaker of Bhagavad Gita with the words Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 I read first the Sanskrit. Yata prakasayat yeka kritsam lokam ibam vadravi. Kshetram kshetri tata kritsam prakasayati bharata. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminates the entire body by consciousness. Commentary by Abhayacharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. This consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is a proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by an intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combinations of matter, it is a symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme, because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the supersoul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between the supreme consciousness and the individual consciousness. Read the verse again. Yata prakasayat eka kritsham lokam ibam varvi kshatram kshatri tata krishnam prakasayati bharata. Son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Om Ajnana Tirandasya Shanam Shanam Shanaka Sakshan Vetamina Tasmai Shigove Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svamukadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiyo Shiyuda Padakamanam Shigam Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Jagajatam Sakanaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parajana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saganalita Shivshakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jyatpate Kaupesha Kaupka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabani Sudadevi Pranamama Hripriye Pankha Kalptru Visha Kripa Sinve Visha Patanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki. So what is the symptom of the presence of the soul? It is consciousness. This has been a point by scientists which they cannot solve and will never be able to solve. Krishna says here in Bhagavad Gita, the soul is the source of the consciousness, and the spirit soul, which is described in the Vedas as 1/10,000th of a point of a hair, it's very small. Does not mean that one can see it with a microscope. It's antimatter. You cannot see antimatter with a microscope. 1/10,000th of a point of a hair. That's what we are. Not much. And, but that's the source of the consciousness. And that's our real identity. Everything else what we think is not reality, it's temporary. So that brings us to the point, who are we? that what are we not? That Srila Prabhupada was in Mayapur at the Gurukul, and he asked the boys, who is the most intelligent student here? And all the boys pointed to one boy. And Srila Prabhupada asked him, show me your head. And he went like this. Show me your arm. And he went over all parts of the body. And at the end he said to the boy, now show me yourself. And he was bewildered. He said, oh, this is my head. Even subtle, this is my mind. But where am I? Where is the real self? That real self is described in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam in very detailed. That the spirit soul is made of a certain substance. That substance is called Sat Chit Ananda, has three characteristics. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means eternal, quite different than the body. Eternal, full of knowledge. What do we know in this world? We even don't know who we are. If we are honest, we don't know. So our knowledge is very limited. And the third characteristic is Ananda, unending spiritual bliss. Do we find that in the body? No. So now, consciousness. And in one of the Upanishads, that there is described Brahma Pucham Pratistam. There are 5 levels of consciousness. 5 levels of consciousness. Now, it's important to understand this level of consciousness, and we can observe them in this world, the lower forms of consciousness. The lowest form of consciousness is called Annamoya. Anna means food. Food consciousness. That animals, they have food consciousness. They are always searching for food. That's what they do, the animals. Food consciousness. Some humans have also food consciousness. They like to eat a lot. But anyway, that's the lowest form of consciousness. And then a higher form of consciousness is called Pranamoya. Pranamoya is awareness that I need, it's not only food that I need, but there are others who want also food. And sometimes I have to defend myself. That's called Pranamoya. There are other living entities who want food. So that's awareness of the environment. Then the third level of consciousness has 2 names in Sanskrit. Manamoya or Jnanamoya. Jnana means the point where we identify ourselves with the subtle body, with the mind. We identify with the thinking, feeling, willing. But we are not this thinking, feeling and willing. Some philosophers, they say, I think I am. But Krishna does not agree with that. Because he explained the yoga system in Bhagavad Gita. Yoga, the first thing to practice yoga is to control the mind. What controls the mind? If you can control the mind, you are not the mind. You are the one who controls. Otherwise, yoga has no meaning. No meaning. Without control of the mind, yoga is a farce. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada also in the purport. That's very important. But some identify with the mind and find it and become interested in the activities of the mind and the intelligence. We are even not the intelligence. The soul is given, the soul controls the intelligence. How does the soul control the intelligence? The soul controls the intelligence by being attached. Being attached. Attachment. Attachment means desire. That's coming from the soul. And that's the activity of the soul in this world. The symptom is consciousness. Activity is desire. So this mana-moya, one becomes interested in science, so-called science, and one becomes interested in arts, in politics, sociology, all these things, and things, that's life. But it is on the platform of the subtle body. The subtle body. So it's important to understand. Where the gross body, Krishna says, exists of Bhumi, Rapo, Nala, Fire. Then Kam, that's the gross body. Then Mano, Buddhi, Ahankar is a subtle body. The mind is thinking, feeling, willing. Intelligence is the mind of discrimination. That's on the material platform. Now I'm going to, before going to the higher forms of consciousness, I want to explain you something which is not easy to understand, but those who are advanced in spiritual life, they realize that and that's also explained in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And the point is that, originally we are spirit souls. The spirit soul, what's the origin? What is it? Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vamso Shive Loki Shiva Bhuta Sanatana. The soul is my part and parcel, which is eternally separated from me, Krishna says. So that's already something where the material mind gets in short circuit. We cannot understand that. Because in this world everything has a beginning and an end. But Krishna says the soul has no beginning. Krishna says that also in 220 Bhagavad Gita. The soul never came into being. We are eternal. We are never we came into existence. Never. And never will we cease to exist. That's the nature of the soul, and that's what we are. And because we are a part of Krishna, we are supposed to be connected. You have my iPhone, no? Can you give? So this. Yeah, but I have to put this off. Because that. Okay. So this is an iPhone. It's now connected. All the apps are working. But when it's not connected, it's not working. All the apps are useless, most of them. Some are offline apps maybe, but most apps are not working. So our consciousness, if it's not connected with Krishna, we become useless. Our consciousness becomes covered by these three kind of levels of consciousness that I mentioned. These three levels of consciousness. What was the first one? Anamoya. And the second one? Pranamoya. Third one? Jnanamoya or Manamoya. That time. But what I want to explain is, we are spirit soul. We are different from the gross and subtle body. But originally, we had our spiritual body. And the spiritual body has its own thinking, feeling and willing. But this thinking, feeling and willing can only be used in spiritual activities. Spiritual activities means activities that connect our consciousness with Krishna. If you try to use the spiritual body for materialistic activities, then you get a gross and subtle body. That's how we get it. And why did we get it? Because we disagree to cooperate with the source of everything, Krishna. That we wanted to be the controller ourselves, somehow or another. And therefore we got this gross and subtle body. But if we agree again to connect our consciousness with Krishna, then that original, eternal thinking, feeling and willing and memory and so on will be revived. So that is within the spirit soul. That is there. But that knowledge how to connect with Krishna is called yoga. And Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, the highest yoga is bhakti yoga. And if one has that knowledge how to connect with Krishna in Bhakti Yoga, that's called Vijnana Moya. That's the fourth stage of consciousness. It's still a material stage of consciousness. But there you become aware, I'm not this body. I want to realize myself. And that's the purpose of Jnana. Jnana, Krishna says, is understanding the difference between the spirit soul and the material body. Understanding that I'm not in this thinking, feeling and willing on a material platform. That I need to control this mind. How to control this mind? We can only control this mind if this mind is connected with Krishna. And that's the science to do it. And when you do that, then you make that connection, then the heart starts to become purified. These coverings van Anamoya, Pranamoya, Manamoya, they are hardly removed, these coverings. But these coverings are there since millions of births. It takes a time before this is removed. But as this is removed, you start to realize Chaldi Sat Chit Ananda. Ananda will really comes. Ananda is the happiness of the spirit soul. It's eternal happiness, which has nothing to do with this world. That's a higher level. But that will only start that experience will only come when the coverings are gone. And usually in the practice of Bhakti Yoga, that takes 30, 40, 50 years. It takes a while. Can even take more than one lifetime. But Krishna says, Name Bhaktya Prayashati, my devotee will never perish. And in 240 he says, whatever advancement you make on the spiritual path, you will get for eternity. If you have 2% realization of Krishna consciousness in this life, you will start next life with 2%. And that's explained in the 6th chapter, how in the next birth we become attracted to Krishna. So, Ananda, so this fourth stage of consciousness is a stage where we have knowledge of our real self, theoretical knowledge, and where we understand the process how to connect with Krishna and purify ourselves, and to come healthy nearer to the 5th stage. And the 5th stage is Ananda Moya. Ananda Moya is the normal condition of the spirit soul. If you get Ananda Moya, even if you are still in this body, your subtle body has been spiritualized and you will not take birth again. But to follow this process, you must have faith. And faith comes from knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, faith will be difficult. Although the process of bhakti does not depend on faith itself, but faith is important, and that comes from knowledge. Therefore Krishna gives us Bhagavad Gita. And if you start to practice this process, it's a process with 9 stages, from Shraddha to Prema. 9 stages. Shraddha, means faith. And the end of the process is prema, is anandamoya. That when Prabhupada came, Prabhupada was always in anandamoya. Means he will not take birth again. His subtle body was spiritualized. He was on the spiritual platform. If you are on anandamoya, whether you are in the spiritual world or here, it makes no difference. You cannot suffer anymore. Because we suffer because we misidentify with the body. That's why we are suffering. That the suffering is experienced in the mind. And when we identify with the mind, then our suffering is without end. But when one learns this practice of Bhakti Yoga, you control the mind. You control the mind by engaging in Bhakti Yoga, in devotional service. But that's an art to be learned. And you must do that always. Always. So this is a very important knowledge. Krishna explains also, it's explained in the Uddhav Gita. Uddhav Gita is the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna is instructing Uddhav. It's like a second Bhagavad Gita in the Bhagavatam, but it goes much deeper in some points. Like in the 11th chapter of the Uddhav Gita, Uddhav is asking, please tell me the difference between liberated and conditioned souls. Like in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains there are two kinds of living entities, fallible and infallible. And in the next verse he says, I'm above these two. So the fallible and infallible. So Uddhav is asking, please tell me about the symptoms, about the conditioned and liberated souls, and how can I come from the conditioned to the liberated soul? How can I do that? And Krishna starts to answer, there are no conditioned or liberated souls. The soul is always liberated. That because the soul is spiritual, has nothing to do with matter. It cannot be conditioned. But what happens is that the consciousness coming from the soul becomes polluted by the material energy. By the material energy. We become polluted by that material energy. And then what happens? By the influence of the modes of nature, we start to identify with the body and the mind. And that's the problem. That's the only problem we have. We have to solve that. Because as long as we think we are the body and the mind, we will take birth again. And the process of devotional service will purify you from that misconception, will purify the consciousness. Then Krishna explains there are 4 levels of consciousness that we experience. We have the consciousness when we are awake. We think we are awake. Now we are awake. Then sometimes when we sleep, we dream. That's another kind of consciousness, dreaming state. And then sometimes when we sleep, we have deep sleep. There is no activity of the mind. You need this deep sleep, otherwise you are not rested. And then the fourth stage of consciousness, Krishna says, is Turiya, is transcendental. And Krishna says, this consciousness comes from, the consciousness of being awake is produced by the mode of goodness. The consciousness of dreaming is produced by the mode of passion. Deep sleep is ignorance. And the transcendental consciousness, the consciousness of Ananda Moyam, is the original consciousness of the soul, which is covered by these types of consciousness. But now, how to change that situation? How can we change to the spiritual consciousness? Then that brings up the question, why are we under these modes of nature? Why do we identify with the mind? Why do we identify with the body?